This Wednesday edition of Puck Cross Borders on Sports Addict Live and Total Apex Sports, brought to you by none other than First Round Collectibles. And right now, with promo code Sports Addict, you get 10% off whatever sports card your heart desires. What's your sport? Hockey, baseball, football, basketball, maybe even wrestling, whatever it is, you can get it at firstroundcollectibles.com. And like I said, promo code Sports Addict for 10% off. That's the number one, STRoundcollectibles.com. First Round Collectibles, sports cards for sports fans.
Yeah. Let's go. We just gotta go hard. I go the hardest. I bring the pain. Not what you used to. It's all part of the game. Yeah, I just gotta go hard. I just gotta go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Yeah. Oh yeah, the beast back. Adrenaline pumping through my veins. Can't relax. Original. I am not the same as these cats. I sting them if they never ever.
And welcome, Pucks Across Borders on Total Apex Sports and Sports Addict Live, brought to you by First Round Collectibles. Last day of the show until next week, boys. I think we need just as much of a break as the players do, especially of some of the most boring hockey that I've ever seen in my life. But we'll get into that a little bit. At the top of your screen, beside yours truly, you read his work about the NFL on Gridiron Heroics. John, how are you doing on this Wednesday, my friend?
Doing all right, man. Looking forward to this last hockey before the All-Star break. Feels like it's going to be a while until some of our teams come back.
Yeah, and I think that the first night back of hockey, if I remember correctly, is Monday. And Andre and I, we are proud owners of the only two games in the NHL that night. So a little fun fact. And speaking of Andre, you read his work about the NFL on Gridiron Heroics, Winners and Whiners. You see him and hear him on Total Apex Sports, talking NBA, talking football. Andre, how are you doing, bro?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm very glad that I'm getting a break for the Rangers, and I don't know. I have a lot of good thoughts and feelings about some of the conversations we're going to have today, but we'll get there.
Love it. Yeah, we're going to dive into the teams in the wild card spots and the teams battling for a playoff spot. Look at some playoff odds and go around the room who we like to make it, who we don't like to make it. I've spoken at length about how I hate the salary cap and how rigid it is. However, we've gotten what they wanted, and that's parity, and it's aplenty heading into the final stretch of the season. A couple quick notes. I don't know how much you guys have to really talk about this. Please chime in if you do. Only two games in the NHL last night. St. Louis losing to Columbus 1-0. And the Sharks, John, look at you go, man. Sharks beating Seattle. What's the hat?
I should have taken the bet.
Yeah, you should have, man. That's on you.
Money than Vegas.
Sharks beating the Kraken 2-0. Now I gotta say this. Number one, only two games. That was the most boring night of hockey that I've ever seen. And I love my league. I love this league. Love the NHL. Those two games last night, both of these games featured teams that just wanted to go home. Like they were just ready for the break. And it does beg the question, would it have been better just for every team to take the whole week off and just dive in with 16 games on Monday? Like, let's just get right after it because that was That was brutal to watch. Like, not even necessarily bad games, just boring. Like, both teams just not inspired at all. And then the second point I wanted to make was, and we're going to talk about this team at decent length, actually, because they're going to come up in our playoff picks, and also they're playing tonight. Oh boy, the Los Angeles Kings need to win tonight, because we talked about this on Monday, that if Nashville won on Monday, which they didn't, if Seattle and or the Blues won last night, which both of them didn't, the Kings could find themselves outside of a playoff spot. Now they still could if they lose tonight, but man, they've gotten lucky over the last couple games.
Yeah.
So yeah, they need a win tonight big time, because it's basically everyone is just basically like, hey, who wants it? And no one's really stepping up to take it. All right, with that, let's jump right in. So we'll start in the West. We'll leave the top 3 teams of each division out of it. If you guys have different thoughts or whatever, then by all means chime in. But for the sake of just time and just kind of simplicity, we'll just assume that the top 3 teams in each division will make it in. In the West, in the Central, you have Colorado, Dallas, Winnipeg, which I do think is a pretty steady 1, 2, 3. And that order, I mean, Colorado 67 points. Third place is Winnipeg with 65 points. That's going to be all mixed up as the rest of the season goes on. That's a really tight race. And then you have in the Pacific, Vancouver, which seats pretty comfortably with 71 points. Vegas and Edmonton with 64 and 59 points, respectively. And then we dive in. So, number 1, we got the Los Angeles Kings, St. Louis Blues, Nashville Predators, all with 54 points. You got the Kraken with 52, Arizona, Calgary, both with 49, and the Wild with 47 points. Now, 47 points, the Wild seems maybe the most likely to be out of it. But listen, man, that's only 7 points out. And Kings, St. Louis, Nashville, wouldn't call them the most consistent teams in the NHL. So let's go around and let's start with the Kings. And let's just get this back up here. Sorry, boys. Let's start with the Kings. Live. Computer issues live on YouTube. No problem. Not an issue. All right. Let's start now with the Los Angeles Kings to make the playoffs. Yes, to make the playoffs at minus 450. Now, keep in mind, this team is 2-14 in their last 16 games. They could be out on the outside looking in as soon as tonight. Minus 450 to make it. To not make it is plus 300. John, we'll start with you, man. What do you see with the Kings heading into the final stretch of the season? I'm a little surprised at minus 450. No doubt for them to make it should probably be favored, sure. But minus 450 to 300 not to make it. I don't know, John. What do you think?
I mean, in terms of value, the only way you can really go is to not make it if you want to bet on this at all. But personally, I think they're going to make it. And I think they'll be the 7th seed. Mainly because I feel like the fact that the Kings are still in the playoffs after having, quite frankly, one of the most miserable stretches I've ever seen says a lot about the Western Conference and just how big of a lead the Kings had. I still really think the Kings are a better team than most of the fringe teams in the mix here. Like, I feel like they're going to get their act together, especially February after the All-Star break. And spoiler alert, I may not even pick them to win tonight, but like I still feel like the Kings will get their act together. And if they don't by the end of February, I'll probably change my opinion on this. Like I still don't think the Kings are in terrible shape to miss the playoffs because like they went 2-15, something like that in this stretch, and
Yeah.
they still have one of the playoff spots or at least tied. I think if you could survive that stretch, I find it very hard to believe the Kings are going to go through another stretch like that the rest of the year. I think if anything, they just lost almost all their room for error a lot quicker than we anticipated, for sure. But I don't know. I just get the feeling the Kings are going to get a spark lit under them after the All-Star break and get it together next month. But I still believe they're going to end up in the playoffs, so I wouldn't really support a bet against it. With that said, the odds are ridiculous to bet on them to make it.
Yeah. And I mean, that's just the books saying exactly what you're saying, right? Is this team's too good to miss? Andre, what about you, man? What do you see with the Kings here? You taking that plus 300 for them to miss, or are you leaving that alone?
I'm taking the plus 300. I know they're not going to play like this forever. Obviously, they're going to get back to at least hovering 500 hockey. But the points that they banked early in the season when they were red hot, they withdrew almost all of them. And here they are. And this is a conversation that we didn't think we'd be having. And they have a tough schedule coming up. The games in hand that they do have, they have Edmonton right after the break. They have the Canucks 4 times, as we talked about. I'm sure there are plenty of other tough games on their schedule. And this is a team that's been worse at home. It's not going to be easy to travel forever. We're already seeing that now. They're coming back down to earth. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I really don't. Unless they swing a trade for... Because Cam Talbot's kind of come back down to earth, too. Unless they swing a big trade or two. I just don't see it.
Yeah. And I mean, we talked about this either last week or a couple weeks ago. The whole like Pierre-Luc Dubois thing, like they're strapped for cash. It's going to be tough for them to make a really substantial trade. I'm going to take it too. I don't disagree with anything that you're saying, John, when it comes to why they won't miss the playoffs. I think it's all good points. I do think that your point about the rest of the teams fighting for those 2 spots, they're all not the most formidable opponents. So I don't disagree with you there. I just think if you're going through this now at this point in the season, it's for some reason it just sits differently with me. Like with the Oilers being as bad as they were, they had the whole. It's not super strange to see teams kind of feeling themselves out at the beginning of the year, and then figure it out. Now, 16 wins in a row, figure it out is kind of unprecedented. But you know what I mean? I think this is a real problem. I think the comments shared by the coach and their 2 stars, I think, are also a big concern. And I think they're going to miss 2. Now, who are you putting in that spot? I understand that argument. But I think this is a big deal. And I don't think they're going to win tonight either. Another spoiler alert, and we'll dive into it. But on the other side of it, make no mistake, there's no team that needs the All-Star break as bad as these guys do. And so this could be the reset that they need. All right. So, John, if you think they're going to make it, that leaves 1 spot in John's playoff bracket left. Let's just run through it. St. Louis, Nashville, Seattle, Arizona, Calgary, Minnesota. John, we'll put the spotlight on you here. If the Kings are making it, who of those teams are you putting in for that final spot? And I'll give you the odds.
Nashville.
Nashville.
I'm sticking with my New Year's. I'm sticking with my New Year's pick that Nashville's going to end up with the last spots. I think it's going to be Kings 7 and Nashville 8 right now. I had these two teams in the playoffs in the New Year's show, and I'm sticking with it. I haven't seen anything from the other teams that convinces me otherwise. I realize Seattle got on a hot stretch, but I think they're going to cool off soon as they started last night. St. Louis, I just don't buy into them. They don't score enough, in my opinion. Arizona's even fallen off a little bit. I thought they would be a bit more competitive for that last spot. They still can. I mean, they're only 5 points back. But, yeah, I still like Nashville. I'm not as confident in them. Actually, yeah, I feel about the same as I do at the New Year. Like, they're a fringe team, but I think they're good enough to take the last spot.
Yeah. Well, you're getting Nashville to make it at plus 145. So that's some nice odds. You take some of that Gridiron Heroics money, and you'll set yourself up nicely if they do make it. Andre, how about you, man? We're going through. I wanted to speak about the Kings specifically because that's just the most compelling kind of tire fire that we have in the NFL or in the NHL right now. But out of the rest of these teams, St. Louis, Nashville, Seattle, Arizona, Calgary, Minnesota, what two teams do you have your eye on to make it into those last two wildcard spots?
I'm going to trust the Kraken. I like their goaltending and defense. The power play is solid. I think they have better scoring ahead. I know it sounds weird considering they just got shut out by the Sharks last night.
Sure.
But, I mean, just looking at who they've played, or I guess who they haven't played, Winnipeg's the only tough team on the schedule where they haven't faced them yet. They faced Vancouver multiple times already. They faced Vegas multiple times already. They faced Edmonton, I think 4 times already, maybe 3. They faced Dallas already. Looking at Eastern Conference teams, they faced Carolina, they faced Florida, they faced the Rangers twice. It's really 2 games against Boston, a few against Winnipeg, and then looking at a lot of wonderful games for the Kraken, who are a top 10 team at keeping the puck out the net. So I like the Kraken to make the playoffs as a wild card.
We're looking at plus 300 for the Kraken to make it. So for me, and we'll get back to you for your second wildcard pick in the Western Conference. For me, I'm looking at it, and it I know this is going to sound kind of crazy. I do think that the Coyotes, I love the Coyotes. We all know this. I would love to see them get in. I do think they're going to start falling off kind of at a quicker pace than they were before. I would love to see them in. And if they prove me wrong, then awesome. I get to watch some Mullet Arena in April. I do think in the 8th spot, more than likely, I do think that Minnesota, if everybody can stay healthy, I am starting to trust Minnesota more than the rest of these teams, I think. And I know that they're the last ones, quite literally, obviously besides the Ducks and Sharks and Blackhawks and whatever. But you're looking at plus 600 odds for the Minnesota Wild to get into the playoffs. And I think when this team is healthy, I think this is a very good hockey team. But they are, pardon me, they are one of those teams where everything has to be going right. They got to be healthy. Their goaltending has to be flawless. Like they got to get every little thing just right. At plus 600, I actually really like them to make it in. So, Andre, with that final spot, who is joining Seattle in the Western Conference playoffs?
Yeah, that last spot is really tricky. Fading the Kings. I trust Minnesota more than anyone. I think they just have to play a little too well down the stretch for these last 32 games. They have really no margin for error compared to everyone else. Arizona, I think, is going to fall off. Nashville, to me, is just too mediocre. They're too malleable, I guess. I don't think that's going to get them in the playoffs. I think it's just going to keep them 1 or 2 games out of it. I don't think the Blues are a good team. I don't understand how they're 26, 21, and 2.
Yeah.
Right.
I understand their PK and goaltending, but they cannot score at all. And that leaves one team untouched. And
Oh boy,
I don't really want to do this, but I'm gonna
Yes.
I'm gonna go with Calgary.
Oh
I'm gonna go with Calgary.
Yes.
y'all really made up. Wow.
I mean, solid goal scoring, solid goal prevention, elite penalty kill. I think that's very important. Power play, whatever. But pieces change. That can get better. That can get worse. This road trip for them coming out of the break could very quickly sway my mind, though. Coming out, they're in Boston, then they're in Jersey, then on Long Island, and then they're in the Garden. That's their first 4 out of the break before they go home and face the Sharks. If they go 2-2 in that stretch, I think they're going to make the playoffs. So I'm going to roll with Calgary. They've been playing better lately. They've been climbing back up.
That might be an interesting dark horse to keep an eye on. They have been playing good hockey of late.
Yeah. Bit of a slump before Saturday's win, but they've got themselves back in the mix. So
yeah, and I'm really glad that you said that because I think I'm right there with you. I do. The only other team, I mean, I say the only other team. I do think that the Kings are going to stick around. I don't think they're going to be hanging out with the Ducks and the Sharks in the ocean. I guess. I don't know. Do ducks go to the ocean? Or are they more like ponds and lakes and stuff? I don't know.
I thought they were more like
lakes.
Yeah, I thought they were like lakes and rivers.
Yeah, something to look into over the break. We'll get back on Monday. We'll study some National Geographics over the weekend, and we'll let all the good people of YouTube and Twitter know on Monday whether or not ducks go to the ocean. Fascinating thought. That being said, Nashville, to me, they're not going to go away. We've talked about this a million times. They're the cockroach team of the NHL. They're going to be there. So I can definitely see Nashville making it in to the playoffs. And they are where I just had it here, Nashville at they're plus 145 to make it. So minus 180 to miss. So they're expected by the books to make it in as well. So I can 100% see Nashville going in. But I really, really like how this Calgary team has been playing over the last month or so. They've been sneaky good. I dump on this team for this reason, but I think it's actually a good thing leading into the back half of the year is they know how to win one-score games. They know how to win the playoff or in these like really close one-score games, get the job done in overtime. And so for Calgary, Andre, to make it to the playoffs, plus 425, which I don't know if the plus 425 in of itself is disrespectful, but compared to the plus 145 for Nashville, it is curious to me that they're a whole 300 points off of the Predators in the odds to make it to the playoffs. But I think that's going to be my two picks is Minnesota and Calgary. And it's, I don't know. I just have a hard time seeing. I really like this St. Louis team in theory. I think they are better than they have played this year, but I haven't seen enough from them. I really do like Seattle as well. That wouldn't shock me. But from a consistency perspective, I just think Calgary and Minnesota, like this Minnesota team, they got some real players. And it'll be interesting to see if, and I mean, let's be honest about this. The trade deadline's a month and a bit away, right? So we'll see what these teams look like leading into the playoffs, the final stretch after the trade deadline. Moving into the Eastern Conference. At the top, we have Boston, Florida, Tampa. In the Met, we have New York Rangers, Carolina, and Philly. I do think, now I know that we said to kind of pretend that these top three teams, I really do feel like the Leafs are going to finish in that top three. And that's not just because they're my team. I really do think that they are better than the Lightning are. I think the Lightning have more automatic, not more firepower. I mean, clearly the Leafs have a lot of firepower. I do think that the Lightning are going to kind of fade off a little bit here. But as of right now, in the wild card race, you have Toronto with 58 points. You have Detroit with 57. Those are your top two wild card spots. And then a 5-point difference at the beginning of the rest of the league. You have the Islanders at 52 points, Penguins and Devils at 51 points. Capitals also, with 51 points. And then Buffalo, Montreal with 48. Probably safe to say Buffalo and Montreal kind of too far back at this point, considering the teams they have ahead of them. John, we'll start with you, man. We got Toronto. We got Detroit. The saving grace for your Devils is that the bottom of the top three of the Met is Philadelphia with 56 points. That's the saving grace here. Do you think that Detroit or the Leafs fade off into golfing season in April? Or do you think that any of these other teams, the Islanders, Pens, Devils, Caps, can squeak into those last two wildcard spots? And I guess it was a conversation that I kind of want to avoid just for the sake of time. However, it's a conversation that has to be had here. Is Philly staying in that top three? Or are any of these other teams in the Met sneaking up to that third spot and into a wild card spot?
I'll start off with Toronto. I think they're coming. I think they'll be in the top three by the end of the year. I feel the same way as I did in the New Year's show. That team is too good to miss out. I don't think they're going to fade. I expect them to jump back ahead of Tampa Bay by the end of the year. I feel the same way about Tampa as I did on the New Year's show, in that I think they'll be a wild card team. I'll be surprised if they miss the playoffs, especially now that we're seeing some of these metropolitan teams play out the way they are. I feel like Tampa Bay is going to get a spot. Well, I still do. The Flyers, I remember thinking they'd get like the last spot in the playoffs. I'm a little 50-50 on that right now. The Devils are really where my big opinion might change. And the New Year's show, I was a little more confident they'd bounce back and make it. But guys, I'm going to keep this on the ice. This case in Canada, I think, is really impacting both the Devils and the Flyers in a negative way. Like the Flyers have given up 18 goals in the last 3 games. That's very hard to ignore. And the Devils, I think we came out about as flat as we have all year against Carolina last week. These things, like not having McLeod now, not Jack Hughes still being hurt, these things are making me very, very concerned for the Devils. And we still don't have answers behind the nets, like a consistent answer. So I don't feel as strongly about the Devils as I did in the New Year's show. I think that's the big thing that's changed. The thing is, I don't feel as strongly about the Flyers as I did in the New Year's show either. So
Fair.
I feel like the bottom of the East, you guys kind of said this during the last time we talked about this, like some of these teams would start to reveal themselves, and I think it has. But I think the surprise is that everyone in the Metropolitan is kind of doing it, you know? I don't think anyone in the Metropolitan is living up to what they were in the new year. Detroit, I'm still a little shaky on them. I think them and Pittsburgh are the main teams I'd worry about being in the mix. Islanders and Capitals, I think, are falling off as we speak. I had the Devils and the Flyers in the playoffs, I think, before. One of them have to get in there unless I think Pittsburgh makes it. Man, I'm really torn, honestly. I might say Flyers need to solve this goaltending situation, though, for sure. Like they've given up a lot of goals lately. I'm not. I feel like one of the Flyers or the Devils misses the playoffs now, and Detroit may take their spot. I'm just not sure who.
Do you trust what you got? Like, so I guess my question to you is like I think the team that you need to be worried about more, and Andre, you can chime in here too. Tell me what you think. I think the team that the Devils, specifically you, John, as a Devils fan, needs to be worried about more, because I do think that the Flyers are in. I think that Earson, he's had a tough 3-game stretch. There's no doubt about it. But as a whole sample, he's had a very good season. And he's a rookie, right? Like he's had a very good year for them. They would not be in this spot because remember, before this whole thing, Carter Hart was hurt for a lot of this year, and they would not be in the playoffs if not for Earson and the way he played earlier in the year. It's the Penguins that I'm really interested to see. I do think that the Islanders, I would love to see Patty Waugh get in. I do think the Islanders are fading away. I do think the same thing with the Capitals. But the Penguins, that's the interesting one to me. Is the only real question that I have now is, can Detroit keep this up? Which I feel like they can, to be honest with you.
I'm starting to believe in them more than I did a month ago.
Yeah, because
I think I'm swapping out the Devils with the Red Wings now.
If the Devils, yeah, dude, if the Devils or if the Red Wings can keep this up, then this whole conversation doesn't matter because this is our playoffs. This is what we have. But does Philly fade away and or the Devils or Pens creep in? I'm starting to think that the wild card spot, it's either Tampa Bay and Detroit, or Tampa Bay, or like Toronto and Detroit. It's those three teams are kind of there. And I think we're just kind of looking at that third spot in the Met. Is it the Flyers, or is it the Devils, or is it the Penguins? And I think that's kind of where we're at. Just to throw this out there for the context of the conversation, for Philadelphia to make it is plus 140, and for them to miss is minus 175. For the Red Wings to make it, it's plus 100. For them to miss is minus 130. Where was it? The Devils. For the Devils to make it, minus 115, to miss minus 115. For the Penguins to make it is -150. For them to miss is +120. Andre, we'll turn the conversation over to you here, man. Do you think that the wild card format is basically set, whether it's Tampa Bay, Detroit, Toronto, Detroit, some variation of that, and all we're really looking at is that third spot in the Met, or do you see this a little bit differently?
I'm the oddball here. I'm not buying the Red Wings just yet.
Okay.
Good team, but they've been streaky all season. And for where they are right now while they're riding high, I think if we see another, or when we see another one of those ruts where they lose a bunch of games in a row and aren't getting points, then suddenly they're going to be chasing again. So I'm not buying or locking in Detroit into a wild card spot. I think Boston, Florida, Tampa, Toronto, those four are locked into a spot. I think the Rangers and the Canes should be locked into a spot. I don't think the Flyers are going to make it anymore. I just think the loss of Carter Hart's too much. I just think there's just been a lot going on and off the ice with that team lately, and the offense was already suspect. So, not buying the Flyers making it. I like the Penguins to be that third team in the Metro. That last wild card spot's the trickiest though, because Islanders are who we thought they were, or at least it's starting to look like it more every day. The Capitals, same thing. It's starting to look more like who we thought they were every day. Devils are banged up, also lost some pieces here. I think it depends on when the main guy comes back firing, Jack Hughes, but it's between the Devils and the Red Wings for that last spot to me in the East.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think, and maybe this is too much. Maybe I'm just giving them too much credit, but I do think Torts being on the Flyers is what's keeping my head straight with the Flyers. Is like a watch, and like no disrespect to Lindy Ruff, but I watch the Devils and it looks kind of chaotic sometimes. And
It is.
yeah, and with the Flyers,
So
yeah, man, and like with the Flyers, I just kind of trust that structure and kind of trust that you can hear Torts talking to the team about all the noise that's happening right now with Carter Hart and with that whole situation. And I do trust him to figure this out. But yeah, I can't. I just wish for John's sake that the Devils to miss the playoffs was plus money, because then at least he could put 100 on it and just kind of wash his tears with his money. You know what I mean? Wipe him away. But with the minus money, it's a little bit more difficult. So yeah, I'm the other thing, and this is kind of a conversation that I want to get off my chest. It's not really important with regards to actually making it or not, but with the Toronto Maple Leafs, right? And I want to know your opinion, Andre. I know you're kind of going through it as a Rangers fan right now, still sitting top in the division. No chance you guys are missing the playoffs. I'd be shocked.
Don't say that.
I know. I'm sorry. I just putting it out there. I do wonder. And again, Andre, you know you're my brother. I love you, man. Not trying to be rude about this, but I do wonder if you're the Toronto Maple Leafs, would you rather make it into the third wild card spot and play the Florida Panthers in the first round? Or would you hold on to the first wild card spot and play the Rangers in the first round?
Oh boy.
And I truthfully, for the content of the show, it would be phenomenal. I think I'm leaning towards the latter. I don't know. What do you guys
watch the Rangers play for the last month? I would lean towards the latter.
What if the Kings win the division? No, that might change my answer.
Yeah, I feel like the Canes are on a better track to win the division right now, honestly.
That's fair.
Which, I mean, I wouldn't mind. I would love to play the Penguins in the first round again.
Yeah. Do you guys think
It
the
bodes well
Penguins
for the
have the
Rangers.
legs to finish an 80-game season in the playoffs, though? I still feel like they're a bit old to keep it going.
Yeah, that's valid. I mean,
Yeah.
they've fallen off a bit. They haven't been playing well lately, and they're
Yeah.
still 51 points, 46 games, on pace to be tied with the Red Wings and pass the Sixers at the very worst. So,
Yeah.
or not
This
the
is
Sixers,
part
the
of
Flyers. It's Red City,
this is
wrong
part
sport.
of why I feel like Detroit is gonna make it. I'm having a hard time with that last Metropolitan spot more than anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I it's weird. It's a weird thing because I do like I do think pound for pound the Rangers are a better matchup for the Leafs than the Canes, except for the goaltending piece. I think the odds of Shesterkin getting hot and making a run are much greater than whatever that goaltending debacle is in Carolina. Because Carolina can get good goaltending, sure, but there's a lot of question marks back there, and you guys know how it is with the playoffs, man. Like your goaltender gets hot at the right time, lights out, right? I, as a Leaf fan, I do not like the Panthers matchup. I don't. That team is too physical for the Leafs. The Leafs don't have that, and if this is a more deep dive Leaf conversation, but like I firmly believe that Ryan Reeves will not play a minute for the Leafs in the playoffs. I don't think he can. And that's the physicality that you kind of wanted, and I don't think he'll be playing for you when the playoffs come. He'll be up in the press box, he'll be on the team still, but I don't see him playing for this team. So yeah, that's just a little curious conversation. I think if the Leafs play the Panthers in the first round, I think it's trouble. Which it's only January, but I don't even makes me uncomfortable talking about. All right. Any other anything that I missed? Any other little playoff potential insight that I missed here, boys?
No, I think we're pretty good. You didn't really touch on the Senators making it kind of disrespectful and how much you love them in the second half. But
Oh man, that team frustrates me. They're dude, mark my words. They're gonna finish above 500. Not for the whole season above 500, but whatever games are left, they're gonna finish above 500 in this final stretch of games, and it's gonna be, this is the team for next year, and it's just watch. And I'm done. I'm not
That
buying the next.
I agree
What's
with
that,
you,
Tom?
honestly.
Yeah, man.
I agree. I think they're gonna finish over 500 for their remaining 30 or so games. I mean,
100%. 100%.
I
All right, let's take. Sorry, John.
no, I was just saying I feel it. That's all.
Oh yeah, dude, totally. And they're gonna make moves at the deadline as if they were making it to the playoffs. I don't see them selling off a bunch of pieces. I do see them buying established veterans for next year with term. Chris Tanev's name has been put out there. I can see them gearing up for next year at the deadline. It's deeply frustrating. But I don't want to talk too badly about them just in case somebody from Ottawa recognizes me when I go to the Belleville Senators game in March. I want to be treated well when I show up to Belleville. It's all about who you know in Belleville. Everybody knows that. All right, let's take a 30-second break and we'll dive into tonight's games.
here go get the money, so I go get it. Hate means I do something right, so I'ma let him. Yeah, I'ma let him, yeah, I'ma let him. I hit the nail on the head, yeah, I'ma let him. All I hear go get the money, so I go get it. Hate means I do something right, so I'ma let him. Yeah, I'ma let him, yeah, I'ma let him. I hit the nail on the head, yeah.
All right, diving in to the games tonight. Speaking of which, perfect timing, great segue, John. That's why you are a professional. And Andre mentioned, I knew I should have given Andre credit instead of John. Andre is the one who brought up the Ottawa Senators. All right. In the NHL tonight, Ottawa is in Detroit. Minus 102 was minus 105 an hour ago, minus 102 now. Detroit is minus 115, still favorited at home. Plus 1.5 for Ottawa is minus 250. Minus 1.5 for the Red Wings is plus 205. The over is 7 at plus 105, and the under is minus 125. Andre, we'll start with you here, man. What do you see in this game tonight?
Well, the winning team, when the first 3 times these two clubs played, first 3 times, so I said they scored 5 goals on the dot in the win. The Senators won 2 of those, believe it or not, against the Red Wings. So they've had 2 5-goal games against Detroit, the most recent of which came in Detroit in a 5-1 win. I don't think there's many reasons to believe in the Senators on the road. I don't think there's many reasons to believe they're going to win in Detroit again against this Red Wings team, not with the way that the Red Wings are playing right now. I just sat there and said they're streaky, and they're on the right end of that right now. I think going into the break, especially since they're in the playoff hunt, they're a little more motivated to get a couple points before they get some time off. I think the Red Wings take this one pretty comfortably. I'm going to take the money line just because it's almost even, and that's good enough odds. But I wouldn't be as scared of the puck line here, honestly.
You touching that 7 number with the over, or are you just kind of staying away from that? Because that number is super fascinating to me.
I feel like it would be a push, if anything.
Yeah.
But I'll go over. I trust
Yeah.
them to score more than I trust them to stop pucks. That goes for both teams.
Yeah, fair enough. John, what do you see here, bro?
I feel like after I picked Detroit to make the playoffs, I have to pick them tonight. I do like them in this matchup, though, in general. Let's be honest, guys. I feel like Ottawa got a little lucky on Monday that they won. I mean, after being down 3-0 in that game, they still managed to come back and win. I guess I should say that's a good win for Ottawa, but I don't feel like they can afford to do something like that against a team who I feel like can keep up with them scoring goals. I didn't feel that way about Nashville on Monday, but Detroit is a bad matchup for them because I think both of these teams are capable of putting up a lot of goals, hence the total. But I think Detroit's the much better goaltending team. Not that they're lights out or anything, but they're not bottom of the league like Ottawa. So I think combined with those two things and Detroit being at home, I got to take the Red Wings here. I'm going to stay away from the total just because I think 7 is pushing our luck a little bit. I agree with Andre where, if anything, probably ends up being a push.
Yeah, I agree with almost all that. I mean, Ottawa, they're 5-4. Like, they've been playing better. They're 5-4 in their last 9 games, and that's after a 5-game losing streak. Detroit, I don't think enough conversations being had, not on this show, but just in general. I don't think enough conversations being had about how well Detroit's actually playing lately. 10-4 in their last 14 games, currently on a 2-game winning streak. They've outscored their opponent 8-2 in those last 2 games. I really do like Detroit winning this game. I'm with you, Andre. The money line is good enough, but I wouldn't be too scared of the puck line either. The over 7 at plus money, I can absolutely see this game being 5-3, 5-4, and I think at minimum it's a push. So I'm down with taking the over, putting the money on it, and if it's a push, then I get my money back. And I, try something on the Ducks and the Sharks in the late slate. So I can't be too mad about taking the over here. I can easily see it being 5-3, 5-4. Either way, like no matter which team wins. But I like Detroit in this spot as well. I'll quickly throw it out there. A couple goal scorers. Larkin, never a bad idea. Plus 135 for him to score tonight. I do think that the big boys have been rolling for Ottawa more over the last couple weeks. Kachuk plus 140, Stutzel plus 195, and Giroux even at plus 210. I really like those three for goal scorers for Ottawa tonight. The interesting one for me is Alex DeBrincat for Detroit. He is plus 195 for him to score a goal. And he has fallen off the face of the earth when it comes to scoring goals lately. And he's got to get one here at some point. And against Ottawa, why not? I'd have to think this guy's going to put a one behind the goalie at some point very soon. And at plus 195, this feels like a good night to take that gamble. All right, moving on to Nashville, which the game of the night, entertainment-wise, I think is Ottawa-Detroit, no question. But the game of the night, importance-wise, is absolutely Los Angeles in Nashville. LA Kings minus 118, favorited on the road. They're 2-14 in the last 16 games, and they're favorited on the road to a wild card race opponent. Nashville minus 102, minus 1.5 for the Kings is plus 205. Plus 1.5 for Nashville is minus 250. The over is 6 at minus 105, and the under is minus 115. John, we'll start with you, man. What do you see with the Kings and the Preds tonight?
I've kind of spoiled this for the last, week or so. I think the Kings are going into the All-Star break with the losing streak or not feeling good. I still think they're going to make the playoffs, but I think they need the All-Star break to get a fire under their butts.
Sure.
I said it last week. I don't think the Kings are in full enough panic mode yet because of how bad their competition has been. I mean, we talked about it before. Nashville lost Monday night. Seattle lost yesterday. St. Louis lost yesterday. Nobody's exactly giving the Kings a lot to worry about right now. I think this is where it all comes together. I think this is when it happens. The Kings need to feel some real heat. And I think that's going to happen by Nashville beating them and pretty much officially knocking them out of one of the spots. I believe these two were 2 of the 3 teams tied for the last 2 spots right now. So, yeah, I think Nashville's going to beat them tonight. And after the All-Star break, we might see what this Kings team is really made of. But I think they need this heat, so to speak. So I'm going with Nashville here.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you that Nashville's going to win this game. I do disagree that the Kings aren't feeling the heat. I think they absolutely are feeling the heat, and I think that the comments from the coaching staff, the comments from the teams is more than enough. Now, Rob Blake has backed Todd McClellan, has said this guy's our coach, which I kind of appreciate. I feel like the coaching carousel that is the National Hockey League is a bit ridiculous. This guy is a good coach. This is all on the players from what I can see. I think the Kings are absolutely feeling the heat, but put that aside. I do think that Nashville also wins tonight. I just think you're on the road. You're right before the break. Maybe I'm putting too much stock into what I watched last night, but I'm telling you guys, like last night, none of those teams wanted to be there. It was absolutely mind-numbingly boring, and I'm really interested to see just the character of Ottawa and Detroit. I don't think it'll be that way. Those guys have some real competitors that are always just kind of going headstrong. But this game tonight, man, I'm really curious to see. I think the under is the play here, for sure. I for me taking Nashville, it's not really a support of Nashville, and it's just. I mean, the scoring for Nashville hasn't been super consistent either, but the scoring for the Kings has just fallen off the face of the earth. And I trust the goaltender in net for Nashville more than I do in Los Angeles. I believe David Riddick is in net for the Kings tonight, which strangely enough, I trust more than Cam Talbot. But I just don't think that the Kings are scoring goals right now. It's that plain and simple. And I think that Nashville wins this tonight. O'Reilly, Forsberg, either one of those two guys for goal scorer. I really like O'Reilly specifically for a helper. I like him getting an assist tonight as well. Andre, we'll go to you, man. What do you see in this game tonight?
Yeah, I think the Kings are feeling the heat. I just don't think there's anything they can do about it.
Right.
And it doesn't really seem like, they're 2-8-6 in their past 16 games. It doesn't really seem like they're having a lot of fun out there at this point. It's just miserable, get it over with, like, please, can we win type deal. And with the break looming, if Nashville scores first, I think the Kings are just going to pack it up, go home, try to regroup, and get their minds right for the second half. I don't know, this Nashville team, they're cockroaches, aggressively mediocre, malleable, whatever you want to use to describe them. But at home, right before the break, a team that they can beat to directly pass in the standings. I think this means more to the Predators than it does to the Kings. They're on home ice. Kings are playing awful right now. I'm with both of you. I like the Predators to win this game. I like the under also. I don't think there's going to be a lot of goals in this one.
No, I'd be shocked if this one goes over.
Yeah.
Maybe a push, but I think this is a classic. Like, this game could even be 2-1, 2-0. It could be 100% be one of those games. All right, moving to
finally
the finale. That's right, the juggernaut. San Jose Sharks in Anaheim. Now, the Sharks played last night. I don't know how much that really matters. Plus 154 on the road are the San Jose Sharks. Minus 185 are the Ducks at home, which is crazy. Minus 155 is the Sharks plus puck line plus 1.5. The Ducks puck line of minus 1.5 is plus 130. The over is 6 at minus 112, and the under is minus 108. Andre, we'll start with you, man. What are you seeing in this game tonight?
Sharks plus 150 is incredible. How often does that happen? The Sharks did beat the Ducks 5-3 a little less than 2 weeks ago. It was January 20th. In November, when the Sharks went to Anaheim, they lost 4-1. I think the Sharks, I don't really know what to do with this game. I'm not gonna lie, man. It's the All-Star break. I think the Sharks care more than most teams right now about playing and winning and just being out there on the ice. I really think it matters to them, even with where they are in the standings. I don't know. Anaheim's a young team that's not in contention, so they might come out a little more fiery than Seattle did, but I'm going to back the Sharks here. There's no rhyme, reason, or logic to it. They beat the Ducks recently. They're playing pretty well. and I think they want every game they can get. They seem like a hungry team, even though they're not good. So give me San Jose.
Absolutely love it. John, what do you see here, bro?
Momentum certainly favors the Sharks here. They've won 4 of their last 5 games. I'm a little hesitant to back him here, but I'm definitely not touching Anaheim either. I mean, the money line's too high. I wouldn't trust them on the puck line to win by 2. I really like the under, honestly. We're talking about 2 of the worst scoring teams in the league. San Jose is on a back-to-back from last night, traveling from the Shark Tank all the way down to Anaheim, I believe. So a little bit of travel involved. I'll be very surprised if this is a high scoring game. I really like that under 6 here. Tempting best bets too. I feel like kind of this is going to be a little similar to last night. Terrible game to end the All-Star break, by the way, leading into it. Yeah, I don't feel the need to pick a side here. I feel like that under is just so attractive that I'm gonna stick with that.
You know what's funny? I actually think this is and not it's not a perfect game to go into the All-Star break like in October. If you're looking at the schedule, you're not like, oh, the last game, like clearly it's an underwhelming game going into the All-Star break. But in the context of this season, I actually really like this game going into the All-Star break because both of these teams already don't care. Like they're done, they're out. They play, and I mean, you guys know how it is when you have teams in any sport who are out. They play, they have nothing like to lose, and they just kind of go out there and have fun. And there's something attractive about this game in the sense that like both these teams are out of the playoff race. Both these teams have nothing to lose. It's the last game before the break. Let's just go out there and have fun. I actually think it's going to be a really good hockey game. It's messing with my head though. I'm not seeing this game super well, and I don't fully understand why. To the point where like I'm like, Ducks puck line. I kind of like the Ducks puck line here. Sharks 60-minute line. I kind of like that. Like I'm kind of going on both sides of it. I don't really know where I lean. And honestly, I might just like do like a fun bet where I pick the Sharks on a money line, and then a separate bet where I check or pick the Ducks on a puck line. And if either one of those hit, I'm still getting plus money. So, all right, why not? But yeah, I actually think this is going to be a really fun game, and I'm actually looking forward to it. The fact that it starts at 10:40 is so unnecessary. Like it doesn't need to start that late. Like you can start it at 10 o'clock. It's okay. 7 o'clock local. It's okay. But yeah, I think for the sake of the show, I'll pick the Sharks money line. I think that that's a good pick. The 60-minute line too, I wouldn't be scared of it. Why not? Plus 250. But I can easily see the Ducks winning this game 4-2 as well. But I like it. So, all right. Moving on to our best bets brought to you by First Round Collectibles. Oh my goodness, man. My brain, I'm ready for the break. Why? Where's all my stuff? There it is. Beautiful. Brought to you by First Round Collectibles. Promo code Sports Addict for 10% off whatever sports card your heart desires. Go to firstroundcollectibles.com. That's the number 1 STRoundcollectibles.com. First Round Collectibles, sports cards for sports fans. John, we'll start with you. What is your best bet on the last night before the NHL All-Star break?
I think I'm gonna go back to that last game. I mean, Ducks and the Sharks, you said it. They're both kind of done with the season as it is, and now they get to go. They get to kind of coast into the All-Star break in a meaningless game. Sharks just played it back to back. These are already 2 of the worst scoring teams in the league. Give me that under 6. I love it in that game.
Andre, what about you, bro? What do you see here as your best bet?
Yeah, we're gonna stay in the Western Conference, but a little bit earlier. Kings, Predators, under 6. Two offenses not doing much right now. Big game, should be tight. Give it to me.
I believe I'm going to go to the early game, hit all 3. And rather than picking a side as a best bet, as much as I do think the Red Wings will win this game, this is one of those games I can't see it going either way. And I'm taking the over at 7. I think it's the right number for this game, over 7. Of course, you're not going to go to 8, or I wouldn't have been surprised if it even opened at 7.5. But I do really like the over 7 at plus 105. I can, in worst case, like I said, it's a push. If you get the parlay, then the other 2 bets hit. This one pushes, you win a little bit less money, but you're still winning something. And I do like the over 7 plus 105 for Ottawa and Detroit.
Well, that was nice. I like the way we did that. John, under 6 in Anaheim for the late night. That's minus 108. I picked under 6 on Broadway in Nashville. That's minus 115. Mark picked the over 7 in Detroit, which, by the way, if you go straight south from Detroit, you end up in Canada. Fun fact. The over 7 in Detroit is plus 105. Put it all together, it's plus 638.
Love it. That's a nice little parlay to wrap up the first half of the NHL season.
Have we ever picked every total before for our best bets?
I don't think so.
Never.
Nice.
No.
Nice. We're getting creative.
Sorry.
I love it. It's like uncreatively creative. It's like we've been too creative in the past, and now we're finding new ways. Well, to everybody who joined us tonight, thank you so much for rocking with us for the first half of this NHL season. It's been a lot of fun. We're going to take off the next few days. We'll be back after the All-Star break on Monday. Leafs and Rangers both in action on Monday night. We're going to go through that. Good luck on your bets. Have fun this weekend. Enjoy the All-Star game. We will see you Monday at 3:30. We will see you then.
Go hard.